Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Podium eSports coverage of the 7th round of Season 2 of Monday Night Racing, the K1 Speed 200K, live from iRacing's virtual version of Watkins Glen International in Watkins Glen, New York. James Pike, the voice of Podium eSports, alongside Taylor Burris and our producer this evening, Ryan Bauer, wishing you all a Happy New Year as we enter 2021 and the stretch runs of the Monday Night Racing playoffs for Season 2. Taylor Burris in earnest. Our charge towards the playoffs begins tonight with one of the, I would say, most under-heralded combos in iRacing. You don't necessarily think of Pro 2 trucks and Watkins Glen as an obvious combo, but you get down to it, and driving these things around this track in particular is a lot of fun.
It certainly is. Now, the only thing we're missing is adding a couple of ramps to make it more of a stadium super truck event. But this track here with this truck here at Watkins Glen International will provide a lot of different technical opportunities for these drivers to work their way through the field and possibly punch their way into the playoffs here in a few weeks' time. A lot of drivers are looking forward to this race and are definitely testing their might here at Watkins Glen in these pro trucks. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. A lot of beating and banking, a lot of sliding is going to be happening here tonight.
These trucks have an interesting driving dynamic compared to just about everything else in the sim as we take a look at where in the world we are, just south of the Finger Lakes of New York State in the central part of the Empire State is where you'll find yourself at this racetrack that traces its roots back to the World War II era when they raced on the state roads around the town of Watkins Glen and then built the permanent facility here in 1956, and it has hosted pretty much everything major, including rounds of the Formula One World Championship past. This track, a former host to the United States Grand Prix, but NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, pretty much everything major finds its way here. But with these trucks, as I was saying, interesting driving dynamic because we don't really have too many vehicles on iRacing that force you to preload the springs. You think back to anyone who grew up in the PlayStation 2 area and remembers ATV Off-Road Fury, or anyone who's played any of the Supercross or MX games, something like that. It's that same sort of idea where in order to really get the maximum amount of grip through the corners here, you have to sort of dig in, pitch the cars, and drive them in. It'll be something we'll watch all night long, but for now, we turn it over to the United States Army Band for tonight's performance of our national anthem. Tremendous thanks to the United States Army Band for their performance of the national anthem. And we turn from our anthem to a look at the playoff standings. We talked about the stretch run to the playoffs beginning tonight. You see your leaders here: Kligerman, DeGroot, Pardis, Busch, and Sanchez, the 5 drivers who have picked up victories. And with his 6th start of the season, Kyle Busch will lock himself into the playoffs this evening, Taylor. That's part of the equation. Win a race, that's 1, but make enough starts is number 2. That combo will get you in outright. So he's mathematically good to go for February.
He certainly is, but let's look a little bit further down in the points. That cutoff area around the 11th to 17th position, a whole lot of wiggle room for some drivers to try and work their way up through the point standing. Drivers such as Stephen Ellis, Chris Wilner, and Max Cannon are ones to watch as they're just on the bubble. But drivers such as Steve Affon, DJ Cummings, who is a former Final Four championship competitor, had an opportunity. He could be booted out of the playoffs here in a few weeks' time.
It's a tight window, and I think in particular from Wilner up, you've got a really good battle. That stretch of drivers that's maybe, 30, 35 points separated from one another. They're going to have some battling to do over the course of January. We've got 4 races to set the field for the Season 2 playoffs of Monday Night Racing. A lot of fun that we are going to have across the board as these drivers complete qualifying. It's open qualifying sessions here in the Pro 2 trucks at Watkins Glen this evening. It's Will Rogers who's got the fastest time as it stands. But more importantly, Taylor Burris, pretty much a full field of trucks. We got 43 trucks ready to take the grid this evening in a standing start, which will be a first for Monday Night Racing Season 2.
Certainly, Wiz. It's going to be exciting. A lot of mayhem is going to probably happen going into turn 1, that 90-degree corner before they make the climb up the S's. So we'll have to see who is able to survive lap 1, turn 1 here tonight. That's going to be the question to see. If you can survive that, then sell yourself into a groove, into a rhythm. You'd be able to survive and take home a chance of winning tonight's race or working your way up through the points to have a shot at a championship.
Turn 1, the top of the S's, the inner loop of the backstretch, and then that run out of the carousel between turns 9 and 10. Your 4 places to watch. If we're going to see action on the track, it's probably where it's going to be. It's time to take a look at your full field rundown and look through the starting grid to tell you where your favorite driver will begin tonight's race. Rogers maintained the top time, so he's your pole sitter with a 1:26.578. Joined in that front 2 rows by IndyCar driver Stephen Wilson and NASCAR Cup Series spotter TJ Majors, who will start from the 4th position, his first start in Season 2 of Monday Night Racing. You flip through the next 2 rows. Nick Sanchez is in the mix there. He won the street stocks at Phoenix a few weeks ago. Josh Bilicki, Ryan Vargas, James Davis in a mix of Xfinity Series and IndyCar experience. Well, Kyle Busch and league owner and administrator Ford Martin round out the top 10, Taylor.
Kobe Moore is going to be starting at 11th, followed by NASCAR Xfinity driver and SCCA champion Preston Pardis, followed by Podium eSports Gary Sexton in 13th. DJ Cummings will be starting in 14th, followed by Monday Night Racing champion Nick DeCarute in 15th. Steve Affan will be starting in the 16th position, followed by Anthony Alfredo, NASCAR Xfinity driver, and then Rajah Carruth in 18th. Matt Stallknecht will be starting in 19th with Michael Rossi rounding out your top 20.
Richmond Raceway's Brandon Brown begins tonight from 21st, 22nd. CR22 Chad Reed. You figure he'll have some experience with the way you have to load these springs up. Garrett Smithley, Ron Capps also there a little bit further back in the field. Roger D. Bold, Dylan Welch, Brett Baldock surrounding Bobby Labonte, who highlights this group from 25th to 28th. Drew Welker, Seth Eggert, your top 30.
In the 31st position will be Greg Stump, followed by Jason Keffer in 32nd. Max Kidman will be starting in the 33rd position, followed by Devin Henry in 34th. 35th will be Jesse Vaughn, followed by Mark Navilis in 36th. Chris Wilner will be starting in the 37th position, followed by 38th position of Garrett Miller. Robbie Lyons will be starting in 39th, followed by Michael Massey in 40th.
Paul Sutton, Jeff Green, Stephen Ellis complete the grid. Tonight we go for 37 laps with a competition caution at lap 15. It is a standing start, remind you, as they all take off, and we are underway with the K1 Speed 200K at Watkins Glen, and already a little bit of blocking further back in the pack. 2 cars that were bouncing off the fence, but everybody beginning to spread out and make their way towards the first turn as Gabe Wood is going to get the inside on Rogers and take over the race lead as they come up through the S's for the first time.
Here they go, up through the S's for the first time. Everybody's trying to keep it clean. A couple of cars going too wide there as they slide up through the top of the S's before they head down the back straightaway towards the inner loop. Still safe and clean for the most part as we see Will Rogers, Gabe Wood, and TJ Majors, your top 3 down the front back straightaway.
Rogers already trying to draw even with Gabe Wood, who's going to back out of it and give a little bit of room as Majors now gets second away from the 50 machine. Stephen Wilson there in the mix. Kyle Busch also there, already beginning to make a charge towards the front of the field as Rogers has opened up his lead to maybe 5 or 6 truck lengths on Majors number 18.
He certainly has pulled quite a bit of a gap. About 1.2 seconds separate the 2 drivers as they go down the straightaway heading into turns 9 and 10 as TJ Majors now settles in the second. Kyle Busch, Nick Sanchez is going to be a one to battle as they look into the turn 10 contact between Stephen Wilson and Kyle Busch as Kyle is just sliding that truck around off corner exit as they come through the final corner to complete lap 1.
They complete the first lap, and Kyle Busch tried to use Stephen Wilson as a moving brake. He almost ran over the 25 in turn 10, but gathered it back up and maintains his spot in 5th That'll complete our first lap of 37 this evening at Watkins Glen with Rogers, Majors, Wood, Wilson, and company. Everybody pretty much in line. A little bit further back, some battles here. It's Preston Pardus, Kobe Moore, and James Davison fighting for spots. Gary Sexton just managed to get around DJ Cummings, and Anthony Alfredo in the Whitetail Smokeless Machine trying to work his way around the 10 truck as well.
Anthony Alfredo tried to take it 3 wide with Cummings and Sexton off the turn 1, the exit, but could not make it work. But now he sets his sights on coming off the S's, down the back straightaway, heading towards the inner loop. He looks to the inside. That truck is sliding all over the place right now as they go into the braking zone for the inner loop, side by side for position, as you see, using the curbing to help try and turn that truck through the S's as best as they can before they head into the carousel.
The interesting thing about these Pro 2 trunks is that normally here at Watkins Glen, track limits matter, and in a sense they still do. You'll still get penalized if you go off of the racing surface, and you'll get your slowdown penalties that those of you who have competed at Watkins Glen in the sim will know well. But in another sense, they don't necessarily matter all that much because these trucks are designed to drive on dirt. So if you go off the racetrack, you're not necessarily going to be penalized with the lack of grip near as much as you would if you were driving in, say, an Indy car or an NASCAR Cup Series car or something that might be a little bit used to pavement.
Certainly not. These trucks are a little bit more forgiving when it comes to dealing with mistakes here at this road course. Now, unless if you hit the barriers, might be a little bit more difficult, but these trucks are definitely a lot tougher compared to your sports car or your NASCAR Cup car that runs here at Watkins Glen as they continue to climb up the S's. I saw a big issue for what looked like to be Gabe Wood in that 50 off the final corner, just tagged the Armco barrier, but was able to continue on. That truck went up on 2 wheels before landing back down, but still underway and continuing on.
Just behind Gabe Wood, really good battle for 5th on back. Nick Sanchez leads this group, but it's got Kyle Busch in it, Ryan Vargas in it, Josh Balicki is there, Preston Pardus, a few drivers who have won some races this year. You've got 3 of your 5 race winners in this group directly fighting for spots at the back of the top 10.
Certainly is. It's Preston Pardus, who's already collected a win so far this year. He's looking to see if he can pick up his 2nd win of the season now and try and work his way up through the point standing as best that he can, catching up with Parker Kligerman, who also has 2 wins this season, but so far stuck behind a couple of other drivers as they go into turn number 9 and still working a great job. He takes a peek to the inside of Josh Balicki, but can't get close enough. Meanwhile, up in front of him, it looks like Gabe Wood and Nick Sanchez are going at it.
Stephen Wilson, Gabe Wood really trying to split from Nick Sanchez and company, but Sanchez has been giving Wood all sorts of trouble a little bit further back in this group. Rogers continuing to lead. Majors has cut the lead down to maybe about 4 or 5 truck lengths, but that's held steady at the front, so you're not missing much as Ryan Vargas survived the big-time dive from Josh Balicki off into turn 1. He tried to stick it underneath the 6 trunk, but just didn't have enough room to make it underneath the Cranio Care Bears machine.
Certainly did not, but was so close. That truck was absolutely sideways off corner exit coming out of the 90, but was able to gain control of his truck and continue on his way. Just a little bit up in front of them, though, Kyle Busch and Nick Sanchez are back at it once again, side by side down the back straightaway before they get to the inner loop. Let's see who will be the braver of the 2. Kyle Busch slides his truck through there, hits the barriers, and keeps on his way as he goes through the grass. That could be a time penalty if he's not careful. Have to keep track and see as Nick Sanchez gets right up on that back bumper.
You would imagine that Busch will get the slowdown for that, but it doesn't look like he's driving like he minds it all that much as Kyle Busch jumps up into the top 5 for the first time this evening. And a little bit further on, Stephen Wilson making quick work of Michael Massey. Both driving the Dynamobiles, shall we call them, I guess? Those bright green and yellow Jurassic Park machines. I don't know if they're going to be clawing up the competition all night long. But Wilson's doing a pretty good job of it. He's kind of spotting the podium as it stands.
He certainly is running in 3rd position, trying to catch up to spotter TJ Majors and see if he can move up 1 more position. Stephen Wilson has been doing phenomenal work here this year and last year on the iRacing service, and he's looking forward to see what he can do for the rest of the Monday Night Series and see if he can make his way up in picking up a win and possibly competing for a championship as his truck slides up through the S's, trying to gain ground on TJ Majors off the S's.
James Davison was able to clear Preston Pardus just a moment ago entering turn 1. So Davison now up into the 9th spot. Good group here with Anthony Alfredo, Raja Caruth, DJ Cummings, Garrett Smithley, Chad Reed. The group a little bit further back as well. But most of the action still here in the front. We ride on board. We try and see who makes something happen. As Kyle Busch just bounced off of the entry into the inner loop and into Gabe Wood. And Wood had to go straight through the chicane. I don't know if he got a time penalty, but Busch smacked the right side of his Rowdy Energy truck with Gabe Wood's number 50 truck, and Wood lost about 5 or 6 spots in the process.
He's going to lose more positions as James Davison is going to be to his inside as they work their way through the field right now. And Davison's going to try to work the outside lane as they enter into turn number 9. Heavy contact and still more contact as Davison makes contact with Gabriel Wood and Josh Bilicki as here comes Preston Pardus into the battle.
Preston Pardus trying to fight his way around both of these trucks. Meanwhile, Nick Sanchez got around Kyle Busch just a little bit further ahead, and Busch gets spun down into pit road and hits the pit road attenuator and goes over it on his lid. I don't know if he was trying to pit and get out of the way, but in either case, he got spun out into pit road, and Kyle Busch wants to roll back on his lid and get that truck fixed up. I imagine he'll probably try and go ahead and pit now, given that he's already there, but just got turned off of the final corner in turn 11.
He certainly did, but thankfully these trucks are a little bit more forgiving, a little bit more tougher, so he's able to come down pit road, get his needed required repairs and maybe some fuel and tires and get back out onto the racing surface as he will continue on his way. But definitely a close call for the NASCAR champion as he works his way down on pit road.
That definitely split up this group a little bit at the front. It was about 5 or 6 cars right in the thick of things. You've got a few more that are coming. And James Davison making a very nice charge. Davison has battled up to where he started. He lost a little bit of ground at the initial start of this, but he's back up to 8th. And he's been climbing up through the field. He's now going to jump up to the 6th spot as he clears Gabe Wood. But Busch coming down pit road also gives us a chance to bring up the point that the fuel range and the runs on these trucks is not that long. 10 to 12 laps is what you can expect. So you're going to make at least 2 pit stops, and there's a competition caution on lap 15. So you're going to see drivers come down at some point. The question is, do you try and split this down the middle and maybe go 7 or 8 laps each side of that comp yellow and maybe come down here in a lap or 2? Or do you just run this all the way out, sprint, and stay out during that yellow on 15 and just go for one big long green flag run?
That's going to be the big strategy call for a lot of these drivers to see if they can do that. Some drivers may want some more fuel added to the car, maybe a little bit of fresh tires, depending on where they decide to go and where they are at in the field. Somebody in the back might want to try and get some fresh tires to continue to work their way up through the field quicker before that competition caution, while others may decide track position is king and stay until that competition caution. So it's going to be a tough call for some of these drivers and determining will they save fuel or will they come down pit road soon as possible before that competition caution.
Tire wear is certainly of concern. It's not necessarily something you normally think about with the Pro 2s, but normally we're running them on dirt, not on asphalt, as Davison nearly got clipped by the 53 machine of Josh Bilicki. He almost got himself in trouble there, but Bilicki will hang on to the spot. Davison sitting in the 6th position, and Gabe Wood still there on the tail of the 12 truck with Vargas and Pardus in tow. Ford Martin has quietly driven up into the top 10. We've not said much about the 07 truck all night as you ride on board with Vargas and you see just how tricky it can be to get through 10 and 11. It seems like we've had a lot of issues with drivers overshooting that corner almost and not getting on the brakes in time to avoid hitting the trucks in front of them.
It certainly is, and some trucks have been working quite well with this situation, but others are absolutely just sideways through the corner, just trying to make sure that they get enough grip to go through there as quickly as possible, but without making any contact, as we see Preston Pardus almost getting into the back bumper of Ryan Vargas and still sideways as they come out of the 90 before making the climb up the S's, but he lost about 2 or 3 truck lengths on the number 6 of Vargas as they continue to climb up through the S's.
James Davison beginning to leave this group behind as we'll send a special shout out in chat to Zachary Lima and Stephen Karsak, who we saw racing a few nights ago and were around in the world and managed to hop on board some of the personal streams in the Podium eSports Twitchverse. Credit to those two for tuning in to Monday Night Racing this evening as we'll keep an eye on the field for you, but Will Rogers is still in control of this. You missed nothing at the front while we focus on these battles right around the 5th spot. Rogers clear of TJ Majors to the tune of about 2 seconds as Bilicki and Davison make quick work of the lap machine. Just behind them now, that's Brandon Brown that they just got around as Ryan Vargas is trying to keep Preston Pardus at bay.
He certainly is trying his best to keep him at bay as they work their way up through turns 10 and 11. Just look how sideways these trucks are, able to still manage to maintain the grip needed to make it through these corners, but still also at the verge of losing control as they come out of turn 11 once again, heading down the front straightaway. No drivers inside the top 10 have yet pitted here currently as we keep an eye up towards the front of the field. 3 wide going into turn 1. That's going to be a close call. Preston Pardus or Nick Sanchez, Josh Balicki make contact off of the 90 as they had a little bit of lap traffic there involved as they still are making contact up through the Essence.
Jason Keffer was the one that nearly threw everybody for a loop as they continue to go door to door and wheel to wheel at the narrowest point of the racetrack, and that's where Josh Balicki will make contact with Nick Sanchez, and Balicki will get into the fence. I had a feeling that was coming because that is the tightest point in all of your laps at Watkins Glen. That area where you crest right at the top of the S's, it funnels down to maybe 2 lanes tops. It wasn't going to work with the way they were racing up there. As hard as they were racing, somebody was due to hit the fence at some point, and Balicki ends up being the one that loses the spot to the 96 of Nick Sanchez and to the 12 machine of James Davison.
He's now going to be in the clutches of Ryan Vargas and Preston Pardus as they come out of the carousel, heading down the short chute before they get to turns 10 and 11 right now. Still going to have about a truck length between the 2 drivers as they dive it in. Turn number 10 once again, and here comes Ryan Vargas with a head of steam, trying to see if he can gain that momentum to help propel him to the back bumper of Josh Balicki. He gets right on there through turn 11 as here comes Preston Pardus gaining some ground as well. Right now we have about 5 trucks under a blanket as they come across the line. We are about 5 laps away before we get to our halfway break.
Seeing a few trucks begin to come down pit road, so we're seeing a few different choices and strategy. We've seen about 10 trucks throughout this field of the 41 that are on track come down for service before the competition caution on lap 15, so we'll see who decides to stay out under the yellow. Meanwhile, still good battles up in the top 10, and maybe time to acknowledge some of the drivers who have made some charges through the field. Anthony Alfredo, we've not said much about in the 33 truck, but he has come up 7 spots from where he started tonight's race, 17th on the grid, currently running 10. Garrett Smithley currently runs in the 11th spot with the, I think officially that's a SpongeBob SquarePants movie paint scheme we're seeing. So I guess he came ready for tonight's race. Yeah. Right?
He certainly did. Another driver who's, you can do that tonight, of course. But another driver who's working his way up the field is, of course, Chad Reed. Remember, we talked about his experience with off-road racing, of course, more so on 2 wheels than on 4 wheels, but still running inside the top 15, currently holding that 12th position and slowly reeling in Garrett Smithley as they come out of the carousel, heading down the short chute towards turn 10.
It makes sense that Chad Reed is making a charge. You think of drivers who understand the dynamics of soft suspensions like you have on these trucks. Chad Reed, may or may not have won a few Supercross titles and may or may not be used to that sort of thing. So no surprise at all that the 27 officially tonight for CR22 is one of the fastest trucks and has made one of the best runs in this opening stint of the race as he comes down pit road for service on lap 10. Looks like you're starting to see some of the leaders peel off for service. Lloyd Martin is down pit road, as is Anthony Alfredo, as is Garrett Smithley and Raja Karu.
Yes, indeed, as they work their way. Currently, right now, the top 9, now make it top 11, have currently decided not to come down pit road yet. We're going to see when they will come down pit road, probably here in the next lap or 2, or they're going to try and see if they can save enough fuel to get towards the halfway break on lap 15 right now. Will Rogers probably going to be the best chance to do that as he has about a 1.7-second lead, but by looking at his times, he has not slowed down one bit at all as they come out of the carousel as he's trying to hold off Stephen Wilson and TJ Majors. Looking at the top 3, Stephen Wilson, the fastest one out of the top 3 as they come down the short chute, heading over to turn number 10 and 11. A great job for these 3 drivers.
He's fallen off a little bit, but Rogers has consistently been bouncing between the 26s and the 27s. He is not terribly far away from that 1:26.5 qualifying time that he set to take the pole. And your leader now comes down pit road with Stephen Wilson and TJ Major. So your top 3 immediately duck down for service, and pretty much everybody else in the top 10 in as well. Nick Sanchez was sideways for a little bit. He almost got into the back of James Davison, but they gather it all together down to a very easy 45 miles an hour down pit road, and they will all come in for service for the first time tonight.
How about this? Nick DeGroot decides not to pit this time. He's going to run another lap while the rest of the field, Steve Affont, Kobe Moore, Seth Eggert, and Roger Diebold is going to also stay out. So we still have at least 2 or 3 more trucks that are going to stay out on the racetrack. Ron Capps is another one who is going to stay on track. So that now leaves about 3 trucks currently who have yet to pit, but they will definitely have to pit here this time by. Otherwise, they're risk running out of fuel.
It is a big question, and I would imagine that if you're DeGroot, if you're Diebold, if you're Capps, you're pitting here on lap 13, you're staying out when the yellow comes out in a few laps, and you'll see if you can gain the track position. Also, just trying to keep an eye and see who's taking advantage of maybe the split pit or the wildness that we saw with the 51 truck. And Kyle Busch, of the drivers who came down more than about 2 or 3 laps ago, is your leader in that bunch. He came down 6 laps ago after getting turned into pit road, and he's back up to 4th already.
He certainly is. He's going to be battling with Gabriel Wood right now once we see the top 3 come down pit road. So this is, in a sense, a battle for the race lead, and Kyle Busch, Gabriel Wood will be the ones battling it out here once we see DeGroot, Diebold, and Capps come down pit road, which should be this time by as we keep an eye on Nick DeGroot. He's coming up to turn number 11. Will he make that turn into pit road to get the needed fuel and services needed for his truck? The answer will be yes, indeed. Here comes Rogers and Capps as they come through turn 10 and 11 as well. We'll keep an eye on them as seeing when they're coming down pit road.
So DeGroot, the defending champion of Monday Night Racing, comes down pit road for service, as does Diebold, as does Capps, and that will hand the lead over to the number 51 machine of Kyle Busch, who goes to the point with Gabe Wood right in tow. And you wonder at the 50 truck, given how much he was bounced around like a ping pong ball in the opening laps of this race, Wood chucking it sideways, trying to get a good drive off to the corner, but Kyle Busch got a better drive. He opened up maybe a truck length or 2 heading up to the S's.
He certainly did. TJ Majors as well had another good run as well. But that puts Will Rogers now back in the 5th position behind Anthony Alfredo, another driver who's worked his way up through the field through strategy. And one of the things that I've noticed and heard about with racing here at Watkins Glen, it's always best to try to pit a little bit earlier because of the fresh tires. Even if you stay out a lap or 2 longer, you risk dropping positions. Drivers such as Will Rogers, who's dropped all the way back to pit. Granted, he's working his way up to the field right now, but due to the fact that he pitted so later compared to Kyle Busch or TJ Majors or Gabriel Wood, he does not now have that position where he's in the race lead. He now has to fight through race traffic in order to get back up to the race lead. That is going to be difficult as he is now making more contact with Gabriel Wood off the carousel.
He just nudged Gabe Wood out of the way. It wasn't a lot of contact, but it was just enough to get the 50 out of line, and Rogers is able to scoot right on past along with Anthony Alfredo, who tries to hip check the 50 to move him out of the way. So Wood continues to be the ping pong of this K1 Speed 200K. No love or no rest for the 50 as it stands, as Will Rogers has completely devoured the gap between his 65 truck and the 18 truck belonging to TJ Majors. Rogers now looking for 2nd, entering turn 1.
Let's see if he's going to be able to make it work through the 90. Here they go. He utilizes that curbing to help propel his truck off the corner and take over the 2nd position, moving TJ Majors back into 3rd position. Now it's going to be a matter of testing who has the better truck. Will it be fresh tires compared to experience now as Kyle Busch currently tries to work away around lap traffic off the S's. And here comes Will Rogers now, 1.5 seconds and closing as they go down the back straightaway heading to the inner loop.
So Rogers trying to reel in the 2-time NASCAR Cup Series champion Majors there. Meanwhile, Alfredo was just able to clear Gabe Wood, and Josh Bilicki is there too as Wood continues to slide back. Next in the list is Stephen Wilson, Ford Martin, and Nick Sanchez. They've all been fighting together with each other for a good chunk of this race. It seems like with that group of about 10 names, it's sort of, draw a line between any 2 of them. It's almost like the elementary school exercise where you had the 2 columns of things and you just sort of draw the lines between the 2 of them. You could switch that order and pair any 2 of these drivers up. They've had some sort of battle within the top 10 tonight, and that's within the first 14 laps.
It certainly is, and we still have quite a ways left to go in this race, so it only means that it's going to be getting more exciting. A lot more drivers are going to try more braver and different strategies, as well as passes, the closer we get to the end of this race. And as Kyle Busch now comes across the line to complete lap 14, Will Rogers has caught up to our race leader, diving it into the 90, truck sideways off corner exit. Who gets the better run? That'll go to Will Rogers as he gets to the inside of Kyle Busch as they make the climb up the S's. who will be able to continue as we have, once again, Will Rogers back up to the race lead.
Will Rogers just power drove through the exit of turn 1 and gained about a whole 2 or 3 truck length on Kyle Busch on corner exit alone. That allowed him to scoot past the 51 easily. He had that inside line as they started to climb up the S's, and it's largely one-way traffic through that portion of the racetrack at Watkins Glen. Busch decided not to fight. He'll slide back to second, and Will Rogers is back to first as we get the competition caution yellow on lap number 15.
A big sigh of relief for some of these drivers now to come down pit road, get some more fuel, get some more tires, make some adjustments. If they have damage, get that fixed, and get ready for another harrowing race here that's about to happen here in the next few minutes once we get these cars pitted and back out on the race circuit. But Will Rogers doing what he does best, getting up to the race lead and starting to pull away. Can he continue this trend and pick up his win here tonight at Watkins Glen, or will Kyle Busch be the spoiler here tonight? We'll find out once we go back green flag racing.
Let the field get bunched up behind Will Rogers and the pace car, and we'll see whether or not we've got any takers that will come down pit road. It's also worth noting here that drivers have one faster pair this evening, and Kyle Busch, by virtue of his incident at the entry of pit road some 10 laps ago, has already used his. So he is at a disadvantage in that regard, but everything else looking very solid for the Rowdy Energy number 51 machine. See a few takers come down pit road, but we'll wait and get the field bunched up and then have everybody come down for service next time by. As we take a moment to remind you all that tonight's broadcast of Monday Night Racing is brought to you by Tufco Flooring. Tufco Flooring is an industrial flooring company specializing in custom floors and drains. Tufco doesn't believe in the one-size-fits-all approach, and neither should you. Tufco listens to your needs and requirements and develops custom solutions for every client. And for more information, you can visit their website, www.tufcoflooring.com. Will Rogers cleaning off the tires on his truck, and as they continue to pace around Watkins Glen International, we are going to step aside briefly. We'll go side by side so you don't lose track of where these trucks are on the racetrack as we work our way through tonight's 7th race of Season 2 of Monday Night Racing, the K1 Speed 200K from Watkins Glen International. We'll be back on Podium eSports in just a moment.
We are an industrial flooring company specializing in custom floors and drains. We don't believe in the one-size-fits-all approach to flooring, and neither should you. When you choose Tufco, we consult with you about your needs, industry requirements, and factor in numerous variables. After assessing your facility, we engineer your floor and drains, then install everything ourselves. That's the Tufco way.
Visit our website at tufcoflooring.com.
For years, people had to get professional tools off of a truck.
That's me.
But we know that tool trucks only come around maybe once a week.
You want to go check out what's in the van?
Now Dave knows that his NAPA Auto Parts store delivers parts multiple times a day to his shop, and they carry the professional line of Carlyle tools. Carlyle offers quality tools with a lifetime warranty on its hand tools and a significant savings over mobile tool trucks. And you can forget about the weekly payments and expensive finance charges.
Just pay me, every week for the rest of your life.
Carlyle Tools, as close as your local NAPA Auto Parts store.
On one weekend, any driver can go from nothing to something. Daniel Everhart winning the Podium eSports Daytona 500. And something to nothing.
Oh, Derek Justice gets turned in front of the field. Derek Justice gets...
In an instant. Register now at podiumesports.com. Welcome back to Podium eSports coverage of the K1 Speed 200K Race 7 of Season 2 from Monday Night Racing, presented by Tufco Flooring, live from iRacing's virtual Watkins Glen International in Watkins Glen, New York. James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports, alongside Taylor Burris and our producer Ryan Bowers. We are under our one and only competition caution of the evening, currently working at lap number 17, waiting for the drivers to come back around towards the front stretch, and we'll see who comes down pit road for pit stops. But while we have a moment under the yellow flag, we'll remind you that tonight's broadcast is also brought to you by our friends at K1 Speed, America's premier indoor electric kart racing company. For more information on K1 Speed, including 42 location sites across the United States, registration rules, and the wide variety of programs that K1 Speed has to offer, visit their website at www.k1speed.com. We'll also remind you that the Podium 500 returns February 7th, 2021, the largest super speedway special event in all of iRacing, as over 200 drivers have now registered and will compete on the high banks of the World Center of Racing to claim a spot amongst the 43 that will start Sunday's 500-mile, 200-lap, $1,000 to win feature events. All Podium 500 events throughout the weekend will be broadcast live on twitch.tv/Podium Esports. You can register today, Podium 500, at podiumesports.com/podium-500. Link coming in chat for those watching on Twitch and on Facebook and on YouTube here momentarily. But should be a lot of fun, TB, as the lights are off on the pace truck. The Podium 500, I've made the point to a few folks that iRacing has very few moments where it gets very sort of NCAA men's basketball championship in nature. But Podium 500 weekend, and qualifying day in particular, it is wall-to-wall racing. You start at noon, you wrap up at almost midnight, basically, and you take the time to whittle down what could potentially be 344 drivers on Saturday, whittle down to 43 that will start the feature race on Sunday afternoon.
And if you think about it, this is a virtual speed weeks, because you not only have the granddaddy of them all, the Podium 500, but you also have other races throughout the week to get people excited, to get people ready to go and try and either enter and compete for a chance of this great historic race, or you have so many other great, amazing events happening that week for people to just go and watch, enjoy, tell their friends about, and of course, see who comes home with a $1,000 prize here at the end of the Speed Weeks.
Should be a lot of fun to watch all of the action. You can register on the Podium Esports website now to join the fun. I can't even begin to tell you some of the names that have jumped in and have put their name in the hat already. Controller King AJ Henderson comes to mind immediately. As the lights are back on the pace truck, we'll get one more lap to try and get everybody sorted out. So maybe it gives us the opportunity to dig through and see who has signed up for the Podium 500. A good chance to dig through that while we've got some time to rest on our laurels here. But Denny Hansen, who competed in the Pro Series a few weeks ago, is in that mix. Trey Edson, who won the Sim 500 Trans Service Cup Series title that you saw on Podium Esports back in November, he's part of the group that will run in this. Michael Guest, one of a handful of Coke Series drivers that have registered for this race, along with Vicente Salas, Malik Ray, and the Richmond Raceway eSports drivers, Jimmy Mullins and Zach Novak. They're in the mix. Anthony Burrows and Walter too, clearly, are going to be involved in the race. And that's one registration page worth of people. That, I think, is the wildest part of all of this. That's one page that I'm reading off of, Taylor Burris. That doesn't count for the other 7 or 8 that we've got in the books already.
Exactly. And you know what? With still how many weeks left before registration to be completed, you never know who may decide to pop up. We could get some surprise drivers here, especially maybe some people here from the Monday Night Racing crew to come out and race in the Podium 500. So keep an eye on the list of drivers who enter, and you could have a chance to compete against some of these big names in all of esports and motorsports.
Matt Stallconnect, Stephen Ellis, Brett Balzac, Seth Eggers. 4 of the names from Monday Night Racing that have already put their names in the hat for the Podium 500 too. So there will be some Monday Night Racing representation when we get to the Virtual World Center of Racing. Preliminary races start February 4th, 9 p.m. that Thursday night. Then time trials coming your way Friday night. Then Q-Day, qualifying day, Saturday, February 6th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time before the feature race broadcast begins at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, Sunday, February 7th, the third annual Podium 500. As the lights are off of the pace truck, and I believe now we are going to get the green flag this time by, Taylor.
We certainly are. Everybody trying to get re-lined up, ready to go racing. I think they had a little issue with some timing and scoring, so they had to make sure everything's set up so that way everyone has a fair chance to get a chance at getting some good positions here. And finishing out this race on a high note, we'll be closing in on just shy of 20 laps left to go in this race, so we'll see who will come out on top as the pace truck will soon head down pit row and probably be the safest and probably the most cleanest truck once we get done with this race tonight.
I think you're probably right about that with the clean truck point, as Will Rogers will lead them back to green. He's had the best truck all night. We'll see if anybody can give him a run for his money now that the field is bunched up again, and he makes contact with Nick Sanchez before they even get to the start-finish line. Rogers goes high, Sanchez goes low. How about Preston Pardis to the inside of Ford Martin as they all dive underneath the 65 machine? Contact between Sanchez and Rogers, who gets shoved up the racetrack, and Sanchez tried to stick it underneath, but I think he may have gotten to slow down. So Ryan Vargas will go door to door with the 96 machine, and they'll both try and catch Will Rogers, who is already opening up a lead to the tune of about 3 truck lengths.
Here they go up to the top of the hill through the S's before they get down the back straightaway, heading towards the inner loop. Will Preston Pardis try to take it 3 wide? No, he gives a little bit of a bump to Nick Sanchez. Down the back straightaway, heading into the inner loop for the first time after the restart. Into the braking zone they'll go. Sanchez will be able to just barely clip the Arco barrier and continue on into second. Vargas still holds strong to third, while Preston Pardis and Ford Martin round out your top 5 as they go through the carousel.
They have strung out nicely here and very quickly, too. First side-by-side battle, you have to go back to Kyle Busch and Raja Karuth, who are running door-to-door, at least for the moment. But the 51 machine easily gets ahead of the 99, and now it really is strung out. There was a big incident over in turn 1 that started with Nick DeGroot going sideways a little bit further back in the field, and you're seeing some of the repercussions of that now. Michael Rossi, Max Kennan and company, way deep in this field, and Jesse Vaughn nearly got put in the fence on the exit of the carousel a little bit further back in the field.
He certainly is. He's trying to recover, sitting in that 31st position right now, Jesse Vaughn, as he's trying to get around Greg Stump and Brett Baldeck as they come out of turn number 11. Another driver who's struggling right now, who had some early trouble, is NASCAR champion Bobby Labonte. He sits in 28th right now in that number 22. Will he be able to try to make up some ground? We'll have to see as they dive it into turn 1 once again. A couple of cars having to brake check a little bit to make sure they get through the corner enough, but they slide through the 90 and Ford making that climb up the S's once again.
Kyle Busch just sent James Davison into the wall right at the top of the hill in the S's. And if you get behind Davison, there is an unbelievable pair of battles going on. Chad Reed, Anthony Alfredo, Josh Balicki, and then Matt Stalkinet, Garrett Smithley, Gabe Wood, Gary Sexton. 2 incredible sets of battles entering the inner loop.
Here they go through the inner loop, and almost a close call for both Anthony Alfredo and Chad Reed. They're able to keep it on the track as they slide through the carousel. Karuth doing a great job. He now breaks into the top 10 for the first time here tonight as they come off the turn exit of the carousel down the short chute before they get to turn 10. Chad Reed just trying to find a way to get around the NASCAR development driver as they work their way into turn 10.
As they continue to race, Ron Capps is giving Kyle Busch a pretty good run for his money. It hasn't been an easy job for the 51 to clear the 28 truck, and Capps not only carrying the colors of his longtime partners at NAPA Auto Parts, but those of the Camping World Drag Racing Series, new title partner for the National Hot Rod Association for their National Touring Series of drag racing coming next year. But he gets split 3 wide as James Davison goes to the inside, bumps into Kyle Busch, and just as soon as he was sandwiched, he gets passed by the 51 of the 12, and Ron Capps now goes back to the 9th position.
Ron Capps is pretty much drives everything here on the iRacing service. He's been on the service for quite some time, knows how to handle just about everything, but he's still trying to struggle just a little bit with these trucks as he drops back to the 9th position. Will he be able to hold on inside the top 10 as Chad Reed is now coming up to him with a head of steam?
Chad Reed making the charge, but as you see on your screens, good fights all around. Nick Sanchez has not let Will Rogers get away this time as we continue to see more battling as they enter the inner loop back there. That looked like it was Anthony Alfredo and Josh Palicki who nearly turned around the 33 and then opened up the door for Garrett Smithley to come right on through in the carousel. So Smithley gains the spot on Palicki, moved the 52 up to the 13th spot right behind Alfredo's number 33.
A lot of drivers are going to be utilizing a handbrake to help them try to control their trucks through these corners as best they can to make sure they have more momentum. It's more contact is happening between Balicki, Smithley, and Alfredo as they come out of turn number 10 right now, but still great driving. But they'll utilize that as more contact happen, nearly sending Alfredo around.
Alfredo, I think, was an innocent bystander there as Smithley was trying to get underneath Balicki and get him back because Balicki just shoved Smithley out of the way at the entrance to turn number 10 and then couldn't quite line it up the way he wanted to, and Alfredo nearly went sideways, and now Alfredo does go sideways on the exit of turn 1. That's a bad place to lose the rear end of your truck because it kills your momentum going up the hill, so it stops Smithley in his tracks as Balicki is able to clear them both by maybe 2 truck lengths.
As they definitely are trying to work their way up there. 2 truck lanes separates the 2 drivers as they come up the S's. Slight contact to the Armco barrier of Garrett Smithley's truck as they come off the top of the hill down the back straightaway heading towards the inner loop. Here comes Gabe Wood. Will he be trying to take a trip through the outside lane to make it work? He will back off just a little bit to make sure he gets through the inner loop, but almost makes contact with that Armco barrier. James, since the drop of the green flag, I've seen these trucks just barely inches away from that Armco barrier, and surprised not a whole lot of drivers have just absolutely destroyed their trucks while coming into the inner loop.
They are clipping it, and they are clipping it tight on the entry to the inner loop, and you make a good point there. Somebody misses that and doesn't hit it the right way with as close as they're running to it. Wouldn't be surprised if somebody bounces back out on the track and maybe runs through that straight part of the inner loop, the runoff area there, and ends up in trouble. Wouldn't shock me in the slightest. We saw that at some point, but as it stands, still really good battles here between Smithley, Alfredo, Wood, and Gary Sexton, who we've not talked a lot about, but the graphic designer for Podium eSports and IRAPS currently holding the 16th spot just at the back of this group that we're watching.
You also got TJ Majors, who's pretty much in the popcorn position. If any one of these drivers in front of him makes a mistake, he is there to hopefully have enough space to get around him without any damage right now, but he still has to keep an eye and make sure he gets through it cleanly as they now go up through the S's. Gary Sexton trying now to see if he can make a pass on Gabe Wood, but currently is stuck right now as he tries to hug the inside groove of the S's, climbing the hill, gets a good runoff corner exit to make up some ground between him and Gabe Wood. About a truck length separate the 2 drivers as we watch the battle between Wood, Smithley, and Alfredo heading into the inner loop.
Incredible stuff here, and Raja Karuth not terribly far away from this either. He's about maybe a second up the road, so these drivers trying to figure out who wants to make the charge to go get him. And now here comes Garrett Smithley using some of the undersea superpowers, I guess, maybe. I don't know. I guess if his car is as blue as the sea and the Armco is sort of that aquamarine, maybe it gives his car a little bit of extra speed. Trying to use a little bit of science to theorize here in some way or another, but in either case, Smithley gets the spot ahead of Alfredo and now has the chance to chase down Karuth if he can start gapping the 33 and the 50, which it looks like he may well just. Smithley, I think, just a hair faster than some of these other drivers around him.
Here comes Karuth, and it looks like another driver, DJ Cummings, the first drivers to blink to come down pit road. Remember, we talked about 12 to 13 laps on a tank of fuel for these trucks, so we are starting to see some of the first takers to come down pit road. Now the question will be, who else will decide to make that jump down pit road as quickly as possible? We talked about how the importance of the tire wear here with these trucks, of how if you're one of the first ones to pit, you have a little bit of an advantage compared to the rest of the field. So we'll have to keep an eye and see what will happen. Will Will Rogers, Sanchez, Ryan Vargas, and the rest of the field come down this time by, or will they try to wait to the absolute last moment?
And as they debate when to come down pit road, we will take a moment to bring you tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break, which is brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in Australian supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, and more. Will Rogers, your race leader, ahead of Nick Sanchez. Ryan Vargas holds the 3rd position. 4th belongs to Preston Barters this time. 5th Kyle Busch in the 51 truck. Ford Martin is 6th. 7th belongs to the 12 machine of James Davison. 8th to Ron Capps. 9th to Chad Reed, and Josh Bilicki holds 10th.
Currently sitting in the 11th position will be Garrett Smithley right now. As we move on to the 12th position, it's going to be Anthony Alfredo, followed by Gabriel Wood in 13th. Gary Sexton sits in the 14th position, followed by DJ Cummings in 15th, with NASCAR Cup Series spotter TJ Majors in 16th. Rajah Caruth sits in 17th, followed by Drew Welker in the 18th position. Kobe Moore sits in 19th. Rounding out your top 20 is Devin Henry.
Bobby Labonte is 21st, 22nd currently is where you'll find Steve Affon. Bruce Wilner holds the 23rd position, and 24th is Mark Rabillis. Brett Baldock rides in the 25th spot. 26th belongs to Max Kennan. Stephen Wilson holds 27th. 28th belongs to Seth Eggert. Ron Capps is now back to 29th, and 30th now to DJ Cummings.
Rajah Caruth, or actually DJ Cummings, dropped to 31st, with Devin Henry dropping to 32nd. Matt Stallknecht sits in 33rd, followed by Garrett Miller in 34th. Michael Rossi will sit in 35th position, with defending Monday Night Racing champion Nick DeGroot sitting 36th, the last car on the lead lap. Jason Keffer sits 37th, Paul Sutton 38th, 39th Michael Massey, 40th Brandon Brown, and then 41st and 42nd go to Stephen Ellis and Robbie Lyon.
And that concludes tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break. With over 170,000 drivers on the service and over 90 laser scanned tracks and cars to choose from, iRacing is your portal to the racing world. Get on track today at iRacing.com. Pit stops have begun, and Nick Sanchez comes down for the race lead. Kyle Busch now to the point as the 96 is in for service. James Davison will go up to second. We'll see who joins the 96 down pit road. Answer to that question on lap 26. How about the 53 truck of Josh Bilicki?
A couple of other drivers who are going to come down pit road. Still not one yet. Anthony Alfredo will join them down pit road. Drew Welker will stay out along with Bobby Labonte. Steve Affon and Kobe Moore also are going to stay out another lap as we keep an eye on seeing who else will make that run down pit road to get the needed services required and continue on their way. Oh, that's a big issue off of the final corner. I couldn't quite catch who that was, but it looked like a couple of drivers were involved in that incident right there.
Greg Stump is on his lid. We'll take a look at the replay and see what happened, but big contact between Stump. The 26 truck was in that mix. Ryan Vargas was near it as well. It was Jesse Vaughn that was there too, but looks like Vargas might have sent Stump off the racetrack, and then Stump tried to correct and get back down and just did not realize that Preston Bardis was right there and ends up running into the 9-day truck. So everybody at a wild spot. Stump was stuck on the pit road wall, and then a little bit later on, the 35 truck of Jason Keffer has nowhere to go because he's waiting for Stump to clear.
Certainly is, and that's going to be a big issue for some of these drivers. A lot of time wasted for them before they could possibly go a lap down or lose a ton of time to race leader Kyle Busch, who still decides to stay out another lap here. So he's definitely going to be cutting it close when he comes down pit road as we are approaching 10 laps to go here tonight at Watkins Glen.
Beginning to close in on the final stages of this K1 Speed 200K. James Pytelabouris and Ryan Bauer bringing you all the action from iRacing's virtual Watkins Glen International. And Max Kennan now getting to make his moves. We're right around 20th.
As we try to make sure and keep an eye on see who else will come down pit road right now. A couple of other drivers who are still, as Gabe Wood actually missed his pit box, so costly pit stop error for the number 50 as he is going to be dropping through the field right now and possibly could lose a lap here depending on when he comes off pit road because he was struggling to get into his pit box. We'll have to keep an eye and see what happens. Meanwhile, back up at the front of the field, Kyle Busch, James Davison, and Chad Reed, your top three, as TJ Majors is rounding out your top four. Still has yet to come down pit road as we keep an eye and see who else will come down pit road, as currently the highest pitter is Will Rogers in that number 65 who just pitted 2 laps ago.
And Wood missing his pit box is an absolute killer with this combo at this track in particular because the lap times are so incredibly long. It's about 1 minute and 30 seconds a lap, so you really burn off some time. If you miss your stall, he's going to have to come in twice, and that should drop him, I would think, somewhere towards the back half of the top 30. I would say somewhere between 20th and 30. Yeah, call it 25th to 30th, I would say, is where we're going to see Gabe Wood cycle through once he comes down again, pits again, and then comes back out on the racetrack.
It's a costly mistake for Gabe, who was running so strong throughout the entire race, running inside the top 10, but one mistake can cost you everything, and that's going to be a big hit for him in the points championship run.
Big hit indeed as Kyle Busch continues to lead this group, but he is on the 12th lap of this stint, so you would figure he's in this time by, as is James Davison, as is TJ Majors. The interesting one to me, how about Steve Affont, who's only running on his 10th lap of the run? Everybody else is coming down pit road, but Affont could stand to stay out for a few more laps if he so chooses.
He could stay up for another at least 2 more laps compared to Kyle Busch, Davison, TJ Majors, and Kobe Moore, who have to pit probably this time by before they run out of fuel. And then, of course, he had a little bit of a gap between him and the next competitor, Will Rogers, so he could probably try and start saving a little bit of fuel. Maybe have a good opportunity to make it to the end, because we're looking at timing and scoring right now. Will Rogers is quite a little bit of a ways back, still about maybe 7 or 8 seconds before we see him catch up to Steve Affont.
Rogers will be your leader that once this cycles through, as Kyle Busch is down pit road, as is Davison. We'll wait to see what Majors does. He's about a turn back of the number 12 truck that runs in second, but your front two are in this time by, and you would figure that Majors and Kobe Moore on their 12th lap also going to come down pit road as well. Here comes Majors. He's in for service. We'll wait and see what Kobe Moore does, but this should hand the lead over to Steve Affont, you would think, once these drivers finish off their pit stops.
Steve Affont's going to stay out for another lap. Here comes Kobe Moore down pit road. That now will move Will Rogers up to the second position, and he has closed the gap between him and Steve Affont big time right now. As we see the rest of the field work their way through, Nick Sanchez, Ryan Vargas, and of course right now Gary Sexton has worked their way through the field. And we see Ryan Vargas and Josh Balicki are also in a tight battle as well, as they work their way out the 90 and continue on their way up through the S's.
So Affont has yet to come down pit road, but he is the race leader for the moment. More importantly, though, James Davison and Kyle Busch came out ahead of Will Rogers, who now has his work cut out for him to go get that race lead that he started this K1 Speed 200K with.
I wonder if Kyle Busch and James Davison only took fuel only in order to take a look at their chance here to get down pit road. Looking at their times on pit road, I think it's safe to say that probably that's what James Davison did, was just take fuel only. 11.9 pit stop compared to Kyle Busch's 16.4 and Will Rogers' 16.4 pit stop.
So Davison probably on the older rubber. We'll see whether or not that actually makes a difference. It's an interesting one because you don't necessarily think it, but it might not matter here if Kyle Busch can make this pass for the race. Well, the net race lead, as it were, which he does with ease. Gets around James Davison nicely in turn 10. Will Rogers also there too, but Kyle Busch up to second. And if Steve Affont comes down pit road this time, as he does, Kyle Busch is going to lead lap number 30, and it could be KB in search of win number 3 this season.
Here they come down into the 90 once again. Will Rogers makes contact with James Davison, moving him up the track as they come out of turn number 1, moving him up to second place, and now set to sight on Kyle Busch up through the S's once again, hugging those little in-tight curbs right there, trying to make sure that he gets enough momentum to carry him up through the track right now. Both of their tires are up to temperature right now, so this is going to be a battle of who's able to manage their truck the best as they go down the back straightaway towards the inner loop.
Statistical correction, Kyle Busch searching for his second win of Season 2 of Monday Night Racing, but Will Rogers looking for his first that would potentially get him a playoff berth if he can find a way around the 51 machine. But Rogers is on older tires and less fuel, and should be able to make it to the end, you would think. He's got about maybe 7 laps left of fuel, and we've got around the same left in the race, so should be all right to go to the end, but we'll see whether or not he can charge on the 51 machine. It is very tight, though, amongst that top 4. Nick Sanchez has clawed his way back into this, and Ryan Vargas is not terribly far behind either.
It's going to be close. He's currently got 5 laps set on his set of stint right now, so he could be close on not making it to the end. We'll have to keep a track and see what will happen. Same thing with a couple other drivers such as Ryan Vargas as well as Nick Sanchez. They were some of the early pitters and decided to wait or pit the earliest. So it's going to be a close call for some of these drivers. But for Kyle Busch, James Davison, they are good to go to the end of the race right now, as they are once again back at it. Your top three up through the S's. Throw in Nick Sanchez now, so a 4-car battle for the race lead.
Nick Sanchez is there, and he is beginning to steal a march on James Davison. He nearly put himself in the fence over at the top of the S's, but just was able to clear it, and maybe, just maybe, he might add the run going into the inner loop to try and get around this 12th truck.
He's going to look to the inside through the inner loop, almost clipping that arm cover area. Has to back off to let Davison get through in order for him to make the corner as they come out of the inner loop through the carousel. Sanchez loses a ton of time on James Davison for that third position. Out of the carousel right now, he's going to try to gain a little bit more momentum, hugging that inside curbing, washing up to the outside of the racetrack to help him propel down the short chute to turn 10.
While they continue to battle, we'll slide a little bit further back to the 7th spot. That's where TJ Majors is, and he's in a really good fight with Gary Sexton and Garrett Smithley for 7th, 8th, 9th on the racetrack. You can see it on your screens here in just a moment. The 18 is sort of watching out of his rearview mirror, while the 13 and the 52 are right there trying to go all over each other and beat each other up to try and get that 8th position outright.
They are certainly trying everything. They are just absolutely all over each other as they come out of turn number 11, and it's still going to be TJ Majors holding strong over Gary Sexton and Garrett as we have a battle for the race lead. James Davison up to the front.
James Davison up to the front. Kyle Busch had trouble entering turn 1. There was contact. He bounced off the fence and got into Will Rogers, and it completely shuffled everything at the front of the field.
It certainly did. Here comes Will Rogers to try to get on the attack of Kyle Busch as they come out of the S's down the back straightaway. They're going to go side by side, almost going to take it 3 wide possibly as they're closing in on James Davison over towards the inner loop.
Davison's down on power. He's got that nose damage at the front, and Rogers is able to clear Kyle Busch and take over the spot. So now Rogers in the 65 has the position. He'll just need a little bit of time to go try and chase down the 12 machine, and Nick Sanchez is right there ready to pounce if either one of the 65 or the 51 or even Davison himself in the 12 slip up.
He certainly is. He is right there to capitalize on any mistake that could happen amongst the top 3 right now. But also Ryan Vargas is in a catbird seat. He sits 5th, about 2 seconds back from our race leader. If anything were to happen to the top 4, he is there to capitalize and possibly take home a win if these 4 drivers in front of him make any mistake and cost them a chance of victory.
1, 2, 3, 4, and it is maybe 8 truck lengths between that entire group. But here comes Rogers to the inside of the 12 machine, who has the nose damage and the engine damage. It just does not quite have the straight line speed that the 65 or the 51 have. And Davison tried to pinch, but he didn't have enough. And Will Rogers to the point in this K1 Speed 200K with 4 laps to go.
Nick Sanchez just bullies his way around Kyle Busch through the S's to take the 3rd spot away from him, and Kyle Busch drops back by about 3 truck lengths between him and 3rd place as they come out of the S's down the back straightaway, heading to the inner loop. Kyle Busch has his work cut out from about 9/10 separate him and Will Rogers.
So Rogers is there. Davison got a good run a little bit further back. Oh, he just went right into the 65 through the inner loop. He didn't even bother trying to use the brakes almost. And somehow, some way, Rogers was able to keep it in one piece. I thought for certain he was going to get moved, but instead, it's Nick Sanchez who tries to move James Davison up the racetrack of the carousel, and they nearly opened the door for Kyle Busch to come underneath and pass both of them.
They're still beating each other up as they go down the short chute, heading to turn 10, dooring each other as they now work their way into turn 10. Kyle Busch on the back bumper of James Davison and Nick Sanchez as they dive it through the corner of turn 10. More contact, sending Nick Sanchez off the racing surface through the grass and continuing on his way as Kyle Busch back on the back bumper of James Davison. He'll look to the inside off corner exit.
Well, Davison really tried to dig the power. He bounces off of Kyle Busch as they come down the front straightaway. And this is everything that Will Rogers wants to see. 3 laps to go, and he's opened it up to a 2nd lead on P2 and P3.
Here they go through the 90. Once again, we are closing in on 3 laps to go here. Can Kyle Busch close in on Will Rogers to get his 2nd win of the season? Or will Rogers finally, after dominating this race, capitalize to take home his 1st win and a chance at a playoff run as they come?
We know how good Rogers is on the road courses. He got the victory in the Grid Ultimate Driver Challenge that you saw on Podium eSports a few weeks ago when they went to Lime Rock Park. He took an IndyCar and beat the field up there. He's a bit of a road course specialist in the sim, especially when you put him up against a bunch of primarily oval drivers like we've seen in this Monday night racing field, especially amongst those at the front. Outside of maybe James Davison is the only one who really has a primarily road orientation. Everybody else is used to the ovals, and Rogers is putting on a clink in front of them. But this, I think, is a good opportunity for him to sort of reset his bearings, give himself a chance to get ready for what should be a really testy final 2 laps if Kyle Busch makes sense like he just did into turn 10.
He's going to definitely try and send it these final 2 laps to get a chance to get around Will Rogers, but Rogers doing everything that he can, hugging the inside lanes, making sure he makes the defensive move to prevent Kyle Busch from making those passes in order to take the race lead as they come across the line. 2 laps to go into the 90 they will go. Will Rogers into the braking zone. Kyle Busch look to the inside, can't quite get there. He'll have to stay in second off the 90.
2 laps to go in the K1 Speed 200K. Rogers, Busch, Davis, and Sanchez, and Ryan Vargas has managed to climb his way back up into this mix. He's just off the rear end of the number 96 of Sanchez and holding down that last spot of the top 5, but it is all eyes on Will Rogers and Kyle Busch with under 2 laps to go.
Kyle Busch with a good head of steam off the S's down the back straightaway, heading into the inner loop. Kyle Busch is no stranger to victory here at Watkins Glen. He gets right on the bumper, just barely, just plows into the back bumper of Will Rogers, sending him through the inner loop, but is able to hold on to the race lead. Will Rogers through the carousel holds on and continues to race lead.
I am amazed that Will Rogers has been shunted on entry into the inner loop as many times as he has, and still has the rear end of that truck for the most part in one piece. You look at the back of it, you wouldn't necessarily recognize that he had been bumped around there 3 or 4 times over, but Kyle Busch not afraid to send it every which way he can, and it'll be all on Rogers to see how he responds, especially as they head off into turn 1. You know Kyle Busch is going to think of something there as they come to the white flag here this time by in the K1 Speed 200K.
1 more lap for Kyle Busch to try everything that he has to take home a win at Watkins Glen. We've seen him be very aggressive at this track before. We're going to see him do it again here into turn 1 for the final time. Here comes Nick Sanchez.
Nick Sanchez just set it from about 3 truck lengths back, and he clipped Kyle Busch and opened up a huge gap for Will Rogers. That was the best thing that could have happened to the 65 machine. So now Rogers doesn't have near as much pressure on him as he did, and it's all about Kyle Busch, James Davison, Nick Sanchez, and even Ryan Vargas, who's firmly in the mix for P2 now.
Ryan Vargas is definitely surprised with what just happened. He has a shot to go into the top 4. He's going to get right on the back bumper of Nick Sanchez as they head to the inner loop for the final time.
All about Will Rogers, and we'll see if James Davison has anything for the 51 truck. He hasn't necessarily had the straight line speed, but in some of these slower portions of the racetrack, that number 12 truck has been right there as Will Rogers has lost a bit of his lead. He didn't have the greatest run through the inner loop, so Kyle Busch may have a shot after all.
Here they go down the short chute to turns 10 and 11 for the final time. 2 more attempts for Kyle Busch and James Davison to have a shot at winning at Watkins Glen. Into turn 10 for the final time.
It was a decent send for Kyle Busch in 10. He's going to have 1 more crack at it coming out of turn 11, and he's going to try and dig and push, and he just got to the 65 and put him in the fence as Busch goes sideways. We've got trucks all over the place, but Will Rogers is going to hang on and claim the victory at Watkins Glen in the K1 Speed 200K. They were all over the place behind the 65, though, as Davison and Busch went wall riding at the end of it and just about ended up in trouble. It shook up the final results at the very end, but Will Rogers, your race winner at Watkins Glen, a wild finish as Kyle Busch went through the grass. He had his shot, he had his send, he clipped the 65, didn't quite get him sideways the way he wanted to, and then was off in the fence. Rogers bounced off the fence too, as did Nick Sanchez, and once Kyle Busch came down off the fence, Sanchez was already on his lid, and he actually lost spots to Ryan Vargas and almost lost track position to Nick DeGroot, who was a lap down, but Vargas managed to get around the 51 in the end.
He certainly was. A great points night for Ryan Vargas to get inside the podium after starting in the 7th position. And of course, for Will Rogers, this is what he wanted. Started from pole, had the fastest lap of the race, and wins tonight here at Watkins Glen, guaranteeing him a spot in the championship run.
Will Rogers is going to pick up the victory in this K1 Speed 200K. And at this point, we'll go through the full field rundown to tell you where your favorite driver finished. It was the 65 truck with his first win of the season. And Will Rogers is now off to the Monday Night Racing playoffs. A big, big moment for the number 65. James Davison came home in second, a season's best finish for him. Ryan Vargas with a podium finish. He comes home with the 3rd spot. 4th is where Kyle Busch landed at the end of the race. Josh Bilicki with the top 5. Nick Sanchez, even on his lid, managed to get a top 10. He finished 6th. TJ Majors came home in the 7th spot. 8th went to the 52 of Garrett Smithley. Gary Sexton with one of his best runs of the year. He came home 9th, and Ron Capps with a solid run as well. He finishes tonight in the 10th position.
11th will go to Gabe Wood, followed by Chad Reed coming home in 12th position. Anthony Alfredo will come home in the 13th position, followed by Stephen Wilson in 14th. DJ Cummings will come home in the 15th position, followed by Kobe Moore in 16th. 17th goes to Steve Affon, followed by Max Kennan in 18th. 19th goes to Roger Diebold, and rounding out your top 20 is Seth Eggert.
21st was Drew Welker. Chris Wilner finished in the 22nd position. 23rd this evening went to Brad Baldock, and Dylan Welch finished in 24th. Mark Rabelis came over in the 25th position. 26th went to Jesse Vaughn. Devin Hendry, 27th this evening. 28th to Ford Martin. Michael Rossi and Matt Stallknecht, 29th and 30th, the last trucks in the lead lap.
31st goes to a Monday Night Racing champion, Nick DeGroot, in 1 lap down, followed by Greg Stump in 32nd. 33rd goes to Garrett Miller, followed by Paul Sutton in 34th. Brandon Brown will come home in the 35th position, followed by Michael Massey's in 36th. Stephen Ellis in 37th. Bobby Labonte will come home 38th, followed by Raja Karuth in 39th. 40th goes to Preston Pardis, 41st Jason Keffer, and 42nd goes to Robbie Lyons.
That completes your full field rundown for this K1 Speed 200K, the 7th race of the season. It's season 2 of Monday Night Racing. And we now bring in Space Station Gaming's Will Rogers, who comes away with victory. And Will, that last lap, I have to believe it was a case of you thought you were clear, that you weren't necessarily certain, because I imagine you saw the contact with Sanchez and Busch going into 1, entering that last lap, and you were able to build a gap, and then you breathed a little bit. But then again, it's Kyle Busch, and by the time we get back to turn 10 and 11, he's right on your rear bumper once again. Can you take us through the roller coaster of emotions that you felt on that last lap?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was the same roller coaster of emotions that I faced in my first K&N win here at Watkins Glen in 2017, because I think I had a little bit of a gap after a green-white checkered, coming to the white, and Ruben Garcia was tracking me down, and he tried to make the same move that Kyle made. Actually, Kyle did a better job of getting on my bumper and sending me into the fence, as where Ruben just barely clipped me and I went on to win. But it worked out this time. You know, I think he and I had a heck of a race. I was just in the chat with him and I said, hey man, good slug match, because that's what it was. He gave me a few shots. I gave him a few shots. I tried to chop him on the front stretch because I was barely clear with probably like 4 or 5, 6 laps to go, because I knew if I had lost the lead, man, I think that was going to be it. So really good run with him. Great run with Nick Sanchez and Ryan Vargas early. Same with James Davison. So that was a good time, and glad we could pull off the W.
So a little bit of experience plays into your hand. And I also have to believe you thoroughly enjoy the fact that these trucks really have some of the softest rear suspensions across all the vehicles in iRacing, because you took more than your handful of shots tonight, especially entering the inner loop. But even there in that contact with Kyle coming out of turn 11, there was a little bit of bumping that he tried to pull on the rear end of your truck, but it just sort of absorbed it. Not necessarily certain that every vehicle in the service would take shots like that, but for you, it seemed to work out.
Well, the thing about it is, like I learned from watching some stock car guys, when they get bumped at a place like New Hampshire, for instance, it's really hard to keep the car under control, but if you bury the brake pedal, it slows you down, gets you under control, and it also screws the guy behind you. So I knew it was coming, so I just buried the brake pedal and held on as best I could, and it seemed to work out. You know, as long as you can get them slowed down and you can get back to the gas at the same time, you know, most of the time it works out. So, but yeah, it's total, just absolute chaos, but fun running these trucks. at a road course. You know, I come from an off-road background, so I'm used to the thing rolling around, and then mixed with my road racing experience, it kind of makes a fun match. And as long as you can stay in the right mindset, don't slide the tires, build as much momentum as you can, so on and so forth, it usually works out. So I love running these, man. I think this was one of the best races of the season tonight.
Off-road experience, road course experience, all of that playing into the victory tonight, and more importantly, you've got yourself a playoff berth with the victory tonight. So now you can start focusing on what we're going to see once we get to February. How excited are you to be part of the Monday Night Racing playoffs for Season 2?
I'm excited, man. I have no idea what the playoff schedule is, but I'm excited to find out and be part of it. I'm glad I got a shot. We got to get my buddy Ryan Vargas in that group, because he earns a spot. He's definitely worked hard for it, and he's had some bad luck recently. So I hope he gets one too, and then I'll be racing with my buddies against guys like Kyle Busch, TJ Majors, a few of these others, and I think it'd be really, really a lot of fun.
We'll be watching all the way through. Will, congratulations on your victory in tonight's K1 Speed 200K for Monday Night Racing, presented by Tufco Flooring. Look forward to seeing you next Monday night.
Thanks, guys. Really, really real quick, got to thank Space Station Gaming, everything that they do, all their partners over there. I said it last time on this broadcast, but we got some really exciting things coming in the Pinnacle series for some of these iRacing platforms, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll be sharing that as soon as we possibly can, so be on the lookout for Space Station Racing.
Should be a lot of fun to see what Space Station Racing comes up with as Will Rogers comes away with the victory, and we'll turn from Will to a very good friend of Will's. It's the number 6 machine of Ryan Vargas, who comes home with the season's best third place finish. He's standing by with Taylor Burrish.
Here with Ryan Vargas coming home in third place. Ryan, I mean, you pretty much had a show to watch for those final few laps. Tell us about the excitement as well as what was going through your mind on that final lap.
No, I was, me and Will had pretty much the same strategy there. Him and Nick Sanchez were all in the same Discord, so we were all yelling at each other, no, let me by, no, you go. And it was a mess, but it worked out good. I knew Will was going to be faster than me, so once I was able to get back up to that lead group, I know it was like 5 of us in a pack there. So once I got there, I just knew I had to be ready for whatever came next.
Now, tell some of the fans who are watching this race about the difficulty of these trucks at this circuit. What makes this combination so different compared to some of the other combinations that we've ran this season so far?
I mean, basically, you're driving a vehicle that's made to drive on, maintained dirt. You're supposed to take it over jumps. You're supposed to sling it sideways, do all this crazy jazz with it. But when it comes to driving these things at Watkins Glen, you have to drive it with a finesse. The less wheel spin you have, the better you're going to be. Me and Will, we took tires on one of the stops, not because it wore tires, but because we had the tires heat up so much. So it was really important to kind of keep those tires underneath you and be able to stretch that fuel.
It certainly was, and a lot of people were concerned about making it to the end with the fuel run, but you were able to play your strategy right and come home with a top 3 finish. Before we let you go, Ryan, is there anyone you'd like to say thank you to and anything you're looking forward to for the rest of the 2020-2021 season of Monday Night Racing?
Yeah, no, it's really cool to run that truck with Cranial Care Bears and Faces, the National Craniofacial Association on the truck. 2 charities I hold real close to me, both deal with craniosynostosis and craniofacial, so giving them a lot of support, and just feels good to be back. Feels good to have a clean race and finish. That's the big thing.
A clean race, a clean finish, and I think we'd be remiss. Normally, I don't know if it would go this way, but Ryan, there may or may not be an event that you may or may not be hosting, that we may or may not be broadcasting, that you may or may not want to tell the folks about here. We'll give you a moment to chat about that E-Street Stock Showdown presented by NutriShop Monterey Park. No?
Oh, yeah. No, we got the NutriShop E-Street Stock Showdown coming to Fontana Raceway, Fontana Speedway. Ooh, Auto Club Speedway. All the different names. We have that on January 27th with the prelims on the 26th. We already we cap it at 200. I think we're at like 190 something. So everyone's pretty much got their spot. It's going to be a huge race. It's going to be basically IROC style. Imagine if you had IROC with a full 40 car field. That's what this race is going to be. It's going to be chaos. There's going to be wrecks. There's going to be beating and banging, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
Podium Esports going to have coverage on both nights. You'll see the standard broadcast for the finale on Wednesday night, but Tuesday night we're going to have the qualifying fun time broadcast that we like to do when Ryan hosts some of his big events and runs all the heats that you have to have. So I figured last time there was karaoke on the Richmond broadcast, and I have a feeling that we may or may not see a little bit more of that again. I won't guarantee it, but I would consider a strong possibility.
Listen, as long as there's nuggies, you're good.
Yeah, no, we'll have nuggies. Don't you worry. We'll find ways to have nuggies. Nuggies and all the other foods that I've seen pop up on your Twitter the past few days. Seems like there are like 5 or 6 that we need to catalog and see what. So we'll let Ryan write the book on that, but we'll let him go do that first. As always, Ryan, thanks so much for your time up in the booth, and congratulations on your podium finish.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for broadcasting this.
Ryan Vargas, P3 this evening, and now a warm welcome to the booth for the first time, James Davison. Normally in the 33, tonight in the 12, and somehow, James, you literally were about the biggest pinball at the front of the field, and you come away with a P2 finish. Is it a testament to just how much you can rebound with these trucks, just how sort of springy they are, not only literally, but in a sort of figurative sense? They've got the ability to rebound from big hits and big shunts, and just how much fun was it out there tonight with these things?
That was a blast, especially the last, I think, 5-10 laps there with Kyle. As you may have noticed, I didn't pit for tires. I just got fuel there, which got me track position, but then I was struggling a little bit for pace. But then I started driving a little bit better and just hanging on, and I knew if I had a shot at it, it probably was going to be by just surviving it along with having a bit of speed. And we got roughed up there by, I think it was Sanchez, both Kyle and I, but yeah, just kept it as straight as I could. And I mean, that was so fun. All the real principles of driving there, just trying not overdrive like a cup car, and just staying disciplined. And yeah, that was a blast. That was my first one, and it won't be my last.
I have to believe that we are coming into your sort of wheelhouse of the schedule, because we turn around from Watkins Glen, we go IndyCar racing at Auto Club next week. We know you know something about the open wheels, and then it's the Delara P217 at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park the week after that. So LMP2 racing, and you may or not know a few things about how to make those cars go fast, no?
Yeah, I guess IndyCar racing is my background. So yeah, but I think you just got to be able to adapt to anything. And yeah, I was happy with that result. Really, in all honesty, I wasn't as quick as I wanted to be until the very end, which I guess that's all that really matters. But yeah, I did the official IndyCar iRacing series, or some of those races during the lockdown period, and was able to lead the Indy race. So maybe that experience helps. But yeah, that was just a blast. So thanks so much for having me a part of it. It was so much fun.
I know there are plenty of people that you need to thank for tonight's run, James. So who do you need to send the shout outs to for making the podium finish possible?
Probably you guys, because if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't have had anything to drive. But obviously my real life supporters with Bird Racing and Rick Ware Racing, that is enabling me to still race at the elite level, and it's a blessing to be able to do that. So yeah, really, I'm just grateful to be a part of it. And yeah, it's so much fun, and it's good for your driving, of course. It keeps you sharp. And yeah, my next race is probably the Daytona Road Course in the Cup Series, which is a month and a half away. So yeah, I'll be doing as much of this as I can to stay sharp.
You'll see him in real life, from one James that comes from a not so famous racing family to another James that comes from a much more famous racing family. Go check it out if you haven't had the chance. But James, big thanks for your time up here in the booth, and congratulations on your runner-up finish tonight.
Yeah, thanks again, guys.
James Davison comes home P2 this evening. Taylor Burris, and you had a feeling it was going to get wild towards the end of this, and it sort of was as tame as you would expect the Pro 2s to be, maybe even a little bit tamer. tamer than I thought it was going to be, with about 10 to go, 5 to go, and then it got towards the end and you get to 2 to go and it explodes like it always does. Pro 2s at Watkins Glen. They somehow find a way to get it done.
I thought for sure we would see a lot more different drivers coming into this battle and possibly not even finishing this race. That's how crazy I thought this race was. But surprisingly, a lot of drivers were consistently racing each other quite well in order to have a great show for all of us. And of course, like you said, last lap, last corner, a lot of things changed. And we saw the major incidents that happened coming to the line for the checkered flag. And it just, once again, Monday Night Racing provides the most exhilarating, exciting racing here on the iRacing service.
More to come all throughout the month of January, so do not go anywhere. Podium Esports is the place to be to see all of it. As we take a look at some of the upcoming events you'll see in the world of Podium over the next week, or weeks plural. We include that event down at the bottom, but we'll come back this weekend, Friday and Sunday. It is the Big G MX5 Challenge Z4 send-off at Daytona. They're going to give a good run to the old Z4 GT3 before everybody begins to transition to the brand new BMW M4 GT3 that just arrived as part of the December update to the most recent build of iRacing. But you'll see those broadcasts 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. GMT on twitch.tv/Podium Esports. Last chance qualifiers on Friday, feature race on Sunday, and then Sunday nights, round 2 of the MPI Cup Series here on the Podium Esports Twitch channel from Homestead Miami Speedway. You can catch that broadcast January 10th, 9:15 p.m. Eastern. We are back on air next Monday night, January 11th, 9 p.m. Eastern for round 8 of Monday Night Racing presented by Tufco Flooring. The IndyCars at Auto Club Speedway. Nick DeGroot and Kyle Busch were 1-2 last time we were there, and could be fun to see how that pans out this time around. And then the big one, we're still a few weeks away. There's still a little bit of time to get your name in the hat, but the Podium 500 is coming, the largest super speedway event in iRacing, where we will see likely over 200 drivers compete to try and make the 43-car field for Sunday afternoons. Podium 500, 12:30 p.m. February 7th, the main race broadcast. But don't forget, the preliminary race February 4th at 9 p.m. Eastern Thursday night, and then Saturday afternoon, 12 noon on the dot, February 6th. Almost 12 hours of racing, 8 heats, 2 last chance qualifiers, 2 duels, 12 races over the course of Saturday to whittle the field down from a maximum of 344 drivers down to 43. It is going to be a time and a half, and if you want to sign up, head to podiumesports.com and click on the Daytona 500, or the Podium 500 button rather, at the top for more information. That will just about do it for our broadcast of Monday Night Racing presented by Tufco Flooring. Round 7, the Pro 2 trucks from Watkins Glen is in the books. For everybody at Monday Night Racing, Ford Martin and Paul Sutton pulling all the strings, Josh Mendoza in race control, our team at Podium Esports, Cisco Scaramuza, Gary Sexton, John Theodore, and our team behind the broadcast tonight, our producer Ryan Bauer, and my colleague in the booth, Taylor Burris. I am James Butt, the voice of Podium Esports. Thank you so much for watching Podium's broadcast on Monday Night Racing presented by Tufco Flooring, and we look forward to seeing you next Monday night when we go to Southern California. Auto Club Speedway with the IndyCars is up next.